Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up. And thank you for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Today's movie review will be on crime thriller Malignant.
What the hell is happening?
I tried to subdue him with ECT, but the electroshock had no effect on him. Then all the machines started going crazy.
So for this video, I'm going to remain spoiler-free until this timestamp. And once I'm ready to get into them, I'll give you another warning, so be prepared if you want to avoid them. Directed by James Wan, Malignant is also written by James Wan and his wife, Ingrid Bisu. The screenplay was written by Akilah Cooper and J.T. Petty. It stars Annabelle Wallis, who was also in Annabelle, Nicole Brianna White, George Young, and Maddie Hassan as our lead's sister. So in this film, our protagonist, Madison, begins to have visions of horrific murders and seeks the help of detectives Kekoa and Regina. The pieces aren't quite fitting together, and soon Madison discovers things about her past that she has repressed. This film was a lot of fun. There were a good amount of people who said they disliked or even hated this film, but I had a feeling that I was really going to like it because I've liked everything that I've seen from him. Things like Death Sentence, The Conjuring, and Furious 7. And Saw is one of my favorite franchises after 2000 and is definitely in my top 3 of all time. Malignant actually came up when I did Grande's Horror Roundtable discussion last Thursday, which you can catch here over on Grande's Graveyard. And Knight from the Night Watch Zone, who was also there, was talking about how much he liked Malignant and James Wan's body of work. So I finally went ahead and pulled the trigger and watched this one. It was tough keeping up with new releases in 2021, but I'm hoping for 2022 I can watch a lot more. So it's going to be really hard to talk about this film without spoilers, but if you're looking for something fun, gory, and doesn't take itself too seriously, then you might have just as much fun as I did. James's influences were some Dario Argento films like Tenebrae, Phenomenon, and Trauma. And we do get some Giallo vibes because we've got this crime thriller mystery on our hands. The horror is there, but it does take a while to get there. The movie sort of feels like one thing, but toward the middle and the third act, it kind of becomes something else. And that something else is exactly what we came for. But the lead up to all of that is also a fun ride. And despite the marketing of this film, it is nothing like The Conjuring. The cinematography is absolutely beautiful. We've got some amazing bird's eye shots and fluid camera movements. The lighting is perfectly dark and spooky, but not too dark. The lighting and cinematography in all of James's movies are noticeably stylized and moody. And the soundtrack is epic and perfectly haunting and really puts this movie over the top. At times, it can be a bit exaggerated, like some of the acting, but it works. James was excited to do another horror film, but he wanted to do something a little bit different. He didn't want to do another haunted house type of movie. And while this may not be a completely original idea, it is a unique take on the premise. James again brought us horror and that creep factor, but for the first time, he gave us a little bit of camp at the same time. It's as if he's dipping his toe in the comedy horror genre. This film is by no means a comedy horror, but there are little moments here and there where he does poke fun at genre films. And with that being said, here come some spoilers. At first, the self-awareness threw me because I didn't recognize it as being self-aware. In the opening scene, I just received it as purposely bad acting and was waiting for someone to yell cut, thinking it was going to be a movie within a movie. But then it kept going, so I thought, okay, James is going for that. Why? And then I see Regina with a lollipop standing next to a dead guy at the morgue. After that is the scene where Madison tells her sister that she's adopted. And that is what sealed the deal for me. And from then on, I knew that this was James being slightly meta. Because he obviously knows how to cast and direct really great actors, if this was a take that he was happy with, this is what he was going for. There's also Lonely Heart Winnie, who pines over Detective Kekoa, which made me think of Deputy Judy in Scream 4 and 5. So So all of this should have set the audience up to really suspend their disbelief, because in the end, we get a lot of wild and unexplainable things happening. And so as I mentioned before, Madison was having these visions of these murders, but it turns out that she was the one committing the murders. However, her mind and body were being controlled by her tumor, also called a teratoma. So while this film might seem grounded in reality, it is very much a fantasy, which is why the creature Gabriel can do parkour and has superhuman strength. The reveal is pretty predictable from the start. As soon as I saw Gabriel for the first time, I knew it was her, just because of the hair. Even after seeing the grotesque face of Gabriel, I knew that one way or another that it was going to be her. When Jeff pushed Madison up against the wall and she banged her head is when Gabriel is awakened for the first time since his removal from the back of her head when she was 9 years old. And now, he is on a serial killing spree, going after those who tried to get rid of him many years ago, starting with the doctors and ending with Madison's sister and biological mother. At the end is when Madison realizes her 3 miscarriages were because of Gabriel, who had absorbed them. The design of Gabriel is disgustingly beautiful. Everything was done with practical effects and contortionists instead of CGI as far as the creature goes. There was definitely some CGI in there when they were chopping off arms and stabbing people, which goes down mostly at the end. I really enjoyed this third act. It was a change of pace and it was welcome. I by no means was bored with what was going on, but the sudden change of pace definitely perked me up. Movies these last couple of decades haven't really gone all out with blood and gore like they did in the 80s and 90s, which is why I really appreciate films like Saw, Slither, and Mandy. Things like The Evil Dead, Reanimator, and Dead Alive really went over the top with their blood and gore, and this jail scene toward the end is the perfect homage to films like those. And this is another moment where you might think, okay, yeah, this is a bit exaggerated. And you'd be right. Ingrid Bissu, James's wife and co-writer, said that when coming up with ideas for this story that she really wanted to incorporate her own personal experience with night terrors and sleep paralysis. And I think they do a really beautiful job in doing this. When Madison goes from one location to another during her visions, it's done so well. She was also inspired by Edward Mordrake, which is exactly what I thought of when we got to the big reveal. The urban legend has it that Edward had a face on the back of his head that would cry, laugh, and whisper things to him at night. He begged doctors to have this face removed, and when they couldn't, he offed himself at the age of 23. Now, this story was thought to be true for a very long time until it was finally debunked fairly recently. The premise of Malignant also shares similarities with Stephen King's adaptation, The Dark Calf, which I haven't yet seen but will now seek out. And actually, Stephen King also tweeted out that he thought that Malignant was brilliant. And for James, when coming up with ideas for the story, he said he wanted to make, quote, a movie for the fan inside of him, which I thought was a funny choice of words. This film can easily be enjoyed if you go into it with an open mind. I think the marketing for this film set up a lot of people for failure, but for me, it is one of the best films of 2021. Malignant earns 4.5 Rainbow Skulls, and if you've seen this film, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments. You can watch this one on HBO Plus, Hulu Premium, and Apple TV. Well, thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. I'll be back next week with a subscriber request from Maiko with a review of House on Haunted Hill. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright Freight Train and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every Thursday and Friday when I upload a new video. I hope I see you next time. Peace.